Coming up, a Sad Styles production. Get into it!
Kick Punch D-pads. This week we take a look back at the rhythm game.
No, wait, you're not doing Parappa the Rapper again.
But you said Kick Punch.
No, we're doing Street Fighter.
Oh, right, because it's the 35th anniversary of Street Fighter this week on the Retrograde podcast.
Welcome to the Retrograde
podcast, where we remind you what you used to love and whether or not you still should.
I'm Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Sharuki Aaronworth.
Oh, very good, Sharuki.
Well, it's close. It's close enough to Mikey.
Yeah.
I don't like this part where I have to explain my nicknames to you.
Okay, well, I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again.
Well, here's the problem.
Okay.
I bring this on myself.
I know you do. Yes.
It's a real Radiohead situation. It is how I do it to myself. So instead of us sitting here just fighting each other back and forth like the titular characters in Street Fighter,
yes,
all the Street Fighters.
We are typical Street Fighters.
We are typical Street Fighters.
Yes.
We are street fighting men.
We do. I dress in my monochromatic clothing, maybe a headband or gloves.
White, red. I go red, white.
Yeah, exactly. But that's how you know we're rivals.
Yes, we are rivals.
Or possibly teammates. You don't know. Sometimes it's very confusing. Absolutely.
It is very confusing, but we're not going to be confused as we take a look at Street Fighter because it is the 35th anniversary of Street Fighter this year, the year of our Lord, 2022.
Do you think most of them are Christian? Most of the Street Fighters?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so.
Except
for a few noticeable differences. Yes, I agree with you.
I think you're thinking Dulcian.
I wouldn't have. that's a generalization that I wish you not to put on me. Thank you very much.
Okay, I won't put that on you.
Okay, absolutely. I was thinking Blanca, but yes.
Blanca. No, Blanca to me, he would be the kind of he could perform miracles. We betify that guy in a heartbeat,
yes.
Like 100%.
Yes, he is also Brazilian, a classically Christian nation. So yeah, they have a
Yes.
huge Jesus Christ that is towering over the country.
That is true.
Just in case you're ever reminded, like oh right, yeah.
You know what goes over really well with the locals, and I know this because I can attest to this because it happened to me personally.
Okay.
When you're sitting there and there's enough people around you that aren't talking to you, but you know they'll hear you, and you're with your group, and you point up to Jesus Christ on the hill. I can't remember
the Redeemer.
Yeah, the Redeemer, Christ the Redeemer,
Yes.
the big statue, and you say
Mount Sugarloaf or something.
you say Jesus Christ, that's a big statue. No one likes that.
Really?
No one likes that.
I thought you'd get a few like, oh, yeah, okay, all right.
No, not even close. They said you can leave our restaurant now, or something along those lines. Listen, but you don't have to leave our restaurant. You can stay in our podcast. And if you're new to this podcast, first of all, thanks for listening. Secondly, typically we do on the podcast is take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we had an affinity towards one way or another. We rate and review the games as we remember them back when we played them. Very subjective score. We play the game, then we come back and rate and review the games as they hold up in the modern day against like some modern games, also to 4 bits. It's such a fun concept.
It really is when you think about it.
You think, and don't think too hard.
No, because it starts making sense.
It starts making sense, indeed, Andrew.
Like my brain.
The original Street Fighter, we don't need to get balls deep into the game just yet.
Jesus.
But Andrew, we're talking about a game where people punch each other to almost near death. And I make a balls joke, and that's too much.
That was the line.
We
found the line.
The thin blue line, baby.
In Street Fighter 1, do you also beat up cars, or is that exclusively Street Fighter 2?
There are bonus levels in between some of the stages, but Street Fighter 1, a very, very different game from Street Fighter 2, and we'll get into that in just a little bit.
I love that idea that like, hey guys, punch each other, and you're like, I'm so furious all the time. And they gotta turn around and be like, fuck this car too.
Fuck this car, I'm so mad.
Yeah.
Take it out.
This guy, like, I'm not a doctor, but I could, prescription or two might go a long way. It just got a lot of anger in his system. Well, cinder blocks.
Listen, I would say that Big Pharma would agree with you, and I don't know that I agree with Big Pharma. I think beating one car to death. Because we're in the
was
Disney
it an
universe.
Autobot?
It was Owen Wilson. It was voiced by Owen Wilson.
Oh my God.
Almost an Autobot. What if Cars 5 comes out and Lightning McQueen turns into a robot? That would make so much more sense.
We can get the Avengers Endgame moment of all the cars coming through there. There's Kit the rider. There's Herbie the Love Bug. Everybody's there. Oh my
Paul
God.
Newman voicing that old one of his last roles
in Cars.
Disney's Cars.
Other famous cars.
We'll talk about beating up cars in a little bit.
Okay,
Before then, I want to talk a little bit of gaming. Andrew, you and I had spoken in the last week's episode about a little game called Stray.
Yeah.
It's a game that we've been playing quite a bit, and I want to make sort of this announcement before we move on. We're going to be doing an episode based solely on the game Stray.
Yes.
Coming up in 1 or 2 weeks. It depends on how our schedule works out. So if you want to play along, it's going to be a spoiler cast.
Yep.
Spoiler cat, as we like to call them.
Spoiler cat.
And we're going to be kind of reviewing the whole thing. Structure of a regular episode, but except for the gameplay break, we're just going to get straight into some spoilers. A more modern game, but something that seems to have caught the eyes, hearts, ears, minds, fingernails, toes, genitals of the general
Bane
public.
organs.
Bane organs.
Yeah.
Bane organs.
Main organs.
Oh, I thought you said Bane organs. Like,
No. And these are organs
I was
from
born in the belly.
state of Maine.
Oh, Maine organs.
Yes. They're delicious. We're going to be doing a whole episode just about Stray.
We are going to be doing a whole episode about Stray, a game that I did finally just complete, actually.
You did? You beat it?
Last night prior to recording this
God.
episode, I beat it. I'm going to save my thoughts until that episode, but look, it's like a 5.5 hour game, 6 hour game.
Right. So there's no excuse.
There's no excuse.
Yeah,
I could have found one, though.
I was going to
Leave
say.
it to me to find one. If you're out there, it's available on PlayStation Plus. It's available on maybe Xbox Game Pass. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's available on multiple consoles. I'm not sure if it's Game Pass or PlayStation Plus only for a subscription service way to play it. But worth playing nonetheless. That's all I'll say on it, and then we'll move on. I also want to talk a little bit of video game news to you.
I'd love to hear it, Mikey.
Because this is a story that's been circulating a little bit, and I think we can kind of base off a little bit of our conversation on this. Just kind of a hypothetical. Okay. Diablo Immortal. You're familiar?
Yep.
The mobile-based game that is was originally thought of as a potential sequel to Diablo, but is more of an offshoot, it turns out. When it was announced at BlizzCon, they didn't say that. It was treated to many boos and a drop in the stock price, believe it or not. Activision just continually dropping their stock prices for some reason, whatever. This game comes out. A lot of people kind of like it, but underneath the surface is just pay to play. That's all it is. And it's very clearly a way to get money from consumers, which a lot of these mobile games are. I know some people who have played it without buying much. It was good for a couple weeks, and now they're just feeling like they're pigeonholed a little bit, and their progress is stunted unless they pay the piper. Bobby Kotick being the piper.
Piper's, he's in an adorable green hat and a flute, and he's walking around.
Yeah, exactly.
Money, please.
You haven't played this game?
I have not.
I haven't either. I have no interest in it whatsoever. However, according to an article by VGC News, and it's actually made the rounds a little bit as well, a Diablo Immortal player paid over $100,000 in upgrades. They're calling him the Whale.
I would say so.
He's known, yes. And as a result of paying that much, empowering himself up that much, it's essentially locked him out of PvP. He cannot play other people in the game because he's too high leveled. He wins, and it puts him outside of matchmaking. So he spends all this money on the game.
Yeah.
And it precludes him from being able to experience the game as he was expecting to be able to experience it. The story's been continuing, and they've since apparently patched that out of the matchmaking. So he can play, but he's still kind of saying, I want a refund on everything I've spent on the in-game items.
Wow.
Where do you fall on this? Is the guy just dumb for spending that much money in the first place?
Well, yes. No matter what.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. No matter how you feel about this, he is stupid for spending that much money.
But if he demands a refund because he can't play the game as advertised, where do you stand there?
Well, it was his choice to do it. So, it's not like they forced him to, But then again, if the game fails at a certain aspect, maybe they should cap the amount of purchases that can be made, but that also would not make sense based on clearly their grubby little hands of trying to just make as much money as possible.
100%. I
Bobby
wonder,
Kotick, sorry. His grubby little hands. Grubby little piper hands.
He tries to get his grubby little hands on everything.
As
is in the deposition.
I shouldn't laugh about sexual assault.
No.
But Bobby Kotick has grubby little hands.
He has grubby little hands.
And they should not be trusted.
Don't trust Bobby Kotick's
Don't
hands.
trust him with your money. Don't trust him with your body.
Money, body.
Mind and soul.
Mind and soul. Or your main organs.
No, absolutely.
Don't trust him with your main organs.
Them.
He will sell those on the black market for sure. So I have a similar thought process to you there. I also, it should be clear, neither you nor I have read through the service agreement of Diablo Immortal. Maybe it says, something about this, like buyer beware, matchmaking, whatever. I doubt it does.
Yeah. Guess who also didn't read the service agreement? A guy that spends $100,000 on a video game.
100%. 100%. So I ultimately come into this believing Blizzard patched it.
Yeah.
Almost it seems exclusively for this guy, or assuming that other people might spend that much. He may have had a couple weeks not being able to play, but he's able to play now. The idea of asking for a refund, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
You spent the money. I cannot imagine that there's any justification in that.
I can't. I couldn't imagine that is true. Also, I love that the idea that they went to the programmers and be like, you got to work overtime to patch this game. And they're like, really? Do we have it in the budget? Like, well, we do now. Like, this fucking idiot spent $100,000. He exclusively is funding you guys working on the patch.
For the next 3 days of your work.
Honestly.
Exactly.
I do love the idea that you show up to BlizzCon, your own branded and exclusive convention, and people boo you. Like, that has to be a real, like, D23 is coming up, which is Disney's Comic-Con version, right? And so people believe that Marvel's holding on to a few other things, maybe X-Men or whatever, and to announce there. And I just couldn't imagine being like, and playing Wolverine is going to be, whatever, Bob Hoskins, and people are like,
100%.
Oh my God.
100%. I don't imagine that would feel great. I also almost feel bad for the people who did the announcements because they're just kind of the face there doing it. But I remember they said at that announcement, like, Diablo Immortal, and it's going to be on phones, and everyone's booing. And then his response is, what, do none of you have phones out there? And it's like, hey, dude, that's not the fucking point. The point is that you're going to make us pay for loot just like you did in Diablo 3.
And just like you'll do with Overwatch 2.
Just like you'll do with Overwatch 2. Yeah. There's also the story, which I think has been blown out of proportion, of Overwatch 2. They launched a survey just to get a gauge of what fans' reactions would be. And one of the questions was, would you pay $45 for a skin in Overwatch 2? And people use that as a reasoning to say, like, oh my God, Overwatch 2 skins are going to be $45. And it's like, no, it's not. But if 2% of people answered that, yes, there will be a $45 skin out there eventually.
Would you pay $100,000 to break this game?
Yes.
And one guy's like, yes.
Okay, well then we're going to allow you to break this game. 100%.
Well, that's the thing. All they're trying to do is gauge your interest and find the cap on the price.
Exactly.
And so once they found the number that they like, 25% or something like that, they're like, well, that's what it is, $17.
Have you ever spent money, not for skins necessarily? I guess it is kind of the same though, but I'm thinking more of like the Farmville games, that sort of thing.
I've never
Simpsons Tapped Out.
No, I've never done it that. I bought a pack in NBA 2K this year.
Oh, okay.
And I felt so dirty.
Oh, did you?
And I'll tell you why. Because I got a really, really, really good card.
Oh, really?
My first and only purchase. It was a Joel Embiid 98 overall.
Oh, shit.
And it was like, they've got like a completely Byzantine system of like, this is a Mystique Opal. And you're like, all right, is that better than the bronze of the Wizard? And you're like, yeah, kind of. And you're like, okay, sure. and you're like, okay, I don't know. Could someone show me the scale, the conversion system of these,
Andrew, that's dumb. Bronze of the Wizard is obviously lower than Opal. That's
really?
Yeah.
What about Midnight Mystics, which is also another one?
Okay, so Midnight Mystics is actually when the Wizard tries to turn their bronze into Opal and fails at it. Oh. That's sort of the what's left over from the experiment. Still more valuable than the Bronze Mystic.
Yeah.
Than the Wizard's
Bronze of the Wizard. Yes.
The Bronze of the Wizard, but not quite as valuable as the Opal.
See, I'm glad you should have been sitting next to me while I was going like, is this good or not good? I can't even tell.
Andrew, I've been asking you so long to let me sit next to you.
Mm-hmm. No. That's why we sit across from each other.
That's why we sit across from each other.
If you're watching the video right on YouTube right now.
Yeah, 100%.
And I got such a good player, and I was like, I feel gross. And I don't like that. Because this is another weird one that I'm aware that I used to be really good at 2K. I'm no longer good because it got really popular and the nerds took it over. But is that, nerds, God, you at home, nerds, God, I can't stand you guys. And
they can barely stand.
Oh, what is that now?
They can barely stand.
They can barely stand.
They've been sitting on their asses playing 2K so long.
Exactly. And that's why you're better than me, and I'm bitter. Is that it now isn't tremendously popular. So many more people are playing. And so therefore, like, if I have a great player like that, somebody's like, hey, this guy must be pretty good.
Yes.
And then I suck. And then they're like, they smoke me or something like that. I'm like, I didn't deserve this. I'm so sorry. I'm so aware of like, I'm so sorry. I didn't deserve this.
No, here's the thing. I honestly think 70% of the people who play consistently online are also buying packs every now and again.
Oh, I believe most people are. I just my own ethos, my own code and creed that I live by will not allow me to do that.
I agree with that. I hate the balance. I hate it because it throws the balancing off.
Yep.
I'm totally fine with paying for skins. I'm totally fine if you put a $300 skin and it's the coolest fucking skin in the game. I'm fine with that. Doesn't affect the gameplay.
No, that's fine.
That's okay. That's okay with me.
If it's all superficial.
Yes.
I completely
maybe
agree.
leave it unlockable for like an ungodly amount of in-game tokens. I'm thinking like Overwatch, like you do get some coins, like make it 100,000 coins or something like that. Something you'd really have to save up for. But like, that's fine. If that funds the production of this game, if that brings in more patches, if that brings in more balancing and oversight for the well-being of the game, I'm totally cool with that. I don't love the fact that if I want to play online multiplayer in a game like 2K, I have to pay the piper. Bobby Kotick.
Bobby Kotick shows up playing a flute. Like, give me some money. Also, boobies. And you're like, Bobby, knock it off.
Booby Kotick. Call me Booby.
Because I think about, remember EA got in so much trouble.
I remember EA.
Yeah. Another studio that is clearly going to get bought very soon.
Yep.
With the Star Wars game.
Yes.
Battlefront.
Battlefront 2. Yeah.
And you had to play like 80 hours to get Darth Vader, or you paid $20.
It was, yes, exactly.
And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, that is not what you're talking about. That is not superficial. He's the strongest guy in the game.
And the guy that most people probably... I've seen
Star Wars.
Have you seen Obi-Wan, though?
Oh, man.
Obi-Wan? You have to pay $25 for Obi-Wan.
What if they do the second season as Obi-2?
Oh, man.
They almost have to just for that reason.
100%.
No one else wants it. I did also love that they're kind of backwards announced Moon Knight Season 2 because Oscar Isaac and the director are in Egypt together. And they were like on a TikTok and like, what are you guys doing here? Like, I don't know why. Wink. And I'm like, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Who's excited by this?
I don't know anyone. Actually, I did hear Triple Click, another a gaming podcast that I listened to. They really liked Moon Knight. And I was like, you guys are wrong, though.
Really?
You guys are wrong. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
To be fair, the one perspective that I heard, it was one of the hosts, I can't remember which one, said that the reason they liked it is because they needed no backstory for Marvel. Okay. And it was just its own kind of thing. And that I understand.
That I understand as being an appeal to going like, oh, I don't have to watch 80 hours of things. But at the same time, you hope that, so if you don't have to watch Marvel and it's isolated, then you're just going like, well, this is just a bad TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care.
Yeah. It's not a bad Marvel show. It's just a bad TV show.
It's just a bad TV show. Yeah, exactly.
Have you spent any more time playing any of your games? Have you caught up a little bit more?
So I started playing Stray because it was the easiest sell I've ever had with my player one of all time.
Oh, yes.
Like, she nearly threw me over the couch when I was like, you get to play as a feral cat going through the world. And she just like broke through the door like the Kool-Aid man and played. I'm like, well, they can't play PlayStation for me anymore. I guess I'll play
Oh, don't, Andrew, stop talking about reading.
There's only so much I could do in my part when the PlayStation played, and then I look over and there's a stack of
don't do it.
But they're covered in vomit. It's just, I was like, I guess I'll read one of these vomit-covered books.
Oh, hey, speaking of, so you played it. It's some initial.
So I played a little bit. I can't wait to talk about in the episode. It's a very interesting game.
It's a very interesting game. I have a ton of thoughts on it. That'll be a fun one. We thought about doing it as a Patreon episode, just because it is a modern game. But I think there's enough to warrant us just talking Tang, talking Tang.
I wanted to say talking puss, but I can't do it but it's a cat. That's what I mean. I'm not Bobby Kotick, guys. Which I need to say all the time.
No, you do.
I'm not Bobby Kotick.
Bobby Kotick. And you're always wandering around the Activision studios.
I know. I'm playing a flute, dancing around. It's like the end of an like a government ad. So like instead of going like, and I endorse this message, like, and I'm not Bobby Kotick. I say that all the time. Everyone knows that. What the hell were we just talking about?
We were going to put it up on the Patreon.
Oh, yes.
We had a great response to our controller ranking, actually, just over on Patreon, patreon.com/retrograde podcast. You can join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month. Growing community over there. We have a lot of fun releasing some bonus content. We just released recently, and it's 2 bonus episodes per month. Also, all of the gameplay segments from each of our games, the video and audio included over there. We did a controller ranking where we took all of the major controllers that have been launched with consoles and we're ranking them from S to D tier. Some responses that we've had. One little teaser there. The PlayStation DualSense.
Oh.
The DualSense controller. No, I'm not talking about the Duke.
I thought you were talking about the Duke for a while.
You may be surprised where we rank that, so go over there to find. But the DualSense controller, I ranked an S. You weren't so convinced on that. It seems overwhelmingly people are siding with me on that one.
Oh, good for them. Bunch of nerds.
No, good for me.
No, not really.
Good for me because I was the one with the opinion.
Isn't it bad when a bunch of people with wrong opinions agree with you? Doesn't that make you feel weird?
Actually, you know what it makes me feel?
What's that?
Like I got a community,
Horny.
Andrew. Horny.
I'm not Bobby Kotick.
Let's
Nice.
fuck on a stack of PlayStation 5 controllers, dual sense. Yeah, so go over there if you wanna have some fun with that. Andrew, let's get into Street Fighter.
Sure.
The 35th anniversary, as we mentioned, August 12th, 1987. It's crazy now that we're talking about major games with a release date that far back. I mean, it's not the first one from this era that we played, but it's back so far. A lot of people don't realize this, because their first experience, I believe, would be with the Super Nintendo's Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
Probably the most popular for the mainstream, I would say, Street Fighter game, especially for people around our age. But that means most of us just skip past Street Fighter 1 entirely. I never played this game. Did you play this game?
No, I think I've seen this game, but I never played it, because I also think if I had played this game, Street Fighter 2 has just washed over all those memories and gone like, oh, this is this game.
It's funny. It's so different that I feel like you wouldn't even have recognized it as being Street Fighter, with the exception of Ken and Ryu being there and one other notable character who we'll talk about a little bit later.
Ooh, interesting.
This game was out only in arcade. It did have some home releases, but none of them quite lived up to the arcade version.
Sure.
They were all ports. As I mentioned, August 12, 1987, developed and published by Capcom, directed by Takashi Nishiyama, who's now famous for essentially creating Street Fighter to be the name, also known as Piston Takashi is the other name he goes by, which is really fucking cool.
Holy shit, his nickname is Piston?
Piston Takashi.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, as in I piston this pot over here.
Yeah, I got a nickname and it's Jin. This guy's Piston. That's fucking awesome.
Jin's a good one, Andrew.
No, it isn't.
Late Night's a good one.
Late Night's a great one.
I came up with both of them.
I can't wait for all the people that were like, oh, I also love the PlayStation 5 controller. Jin's a good nickname. I'm like, how many wrong opinions can you guys have?
Well, this is the thing. I released we release all of our, like, we cut these teasers on social media.
Yeah.
We put them on our TikTok, put them on our Instagram, and
Twitter,
at Retrograde Pod, at the Retrograde Podcast, et cetera, et cetera. You can find us.
Yeah.
And I did a very short clip a bunch of episodes ago. You were talking about, you reached out to the listeners and said, hey, you guys aren't doing anything right now. You're driving in your car or on a treadmill or something. I said, Andrew, chances are they're not on a treadmill. You guys did not like that.
So it turns out you're a very sensitive bunch.
Very sensitive. And here's the thing. You guys shit on me all the time on social media.
Yeah.
I take one pot shot and they're like, unfollow.
Yeah.
Unfollow.
Wait, people are unfollowing because of it?
Sometimes. Yeah,
oh, that's
a couple
such
people.
horse
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah,
That's so funny.
Yeah.
If you have an issue with that, chase Mikey. Do it.
Chase me. Chase
him.
Chase me.
Come on.
The one athletic ability I have is very fast because I can't fight, so I need to be able to run fast.
He'll admit wrong when one of you catches him. All right, but also not in a threatening way. I just also want to say.
So I don't know why
Piston.
Piston. Oh, right. Piston and
Yeah,
nicknames and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it did, as I mentioned, get home releases in 1988 for the PC for MS-DOS.
Okay.
And on the TurboGrafx in 1989, eventually had ports to the Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, Armstead, CPC, Amiga, Atari ST, but a lot of them also really weren't the same game. The MS-DOS version is... I considered playing that for this because it's a bit easier to get your hands on. But
just
it
like
is
Bobby Kotick.
just like Bobby Kotick. But it was wildly a different game and not worth playing. Even this one for the Street Fighter legacy is more of a museum piece, like a proof of concept. It's not a great game, but it did do a lot to advance this genre and to change this genre forever. So the development, as I mentioned, it was directed by Piston Takashi, but also Hiroshi Matsumoto. What was that?
Piston, I can't get over it. It's so cool.
It's a great fucking name.
The fucking guy is awesome.
Piston Takashi, I'm going to focus on him for a little bit because he's got a pretty interesting story.
I can imagine.
Almost the opposite of Michel Ancel, who we talked about in the Rayman episode, because he kind of refused to keep himself tied down to any of his successes. So he was always kind of like developing one thing, moving on to the next, moving on to the next, moving on to the next. That kind of made it so that his legacy in the realm of Street Fighter is somewhat less impactful than maybe it could have been, and I'll tell you why. So he started working with a company called Irem. He designed a game called Kung Fu Master, which released in Japan as Spartan X in 1984. Weird to me that the American version is called Kung Fu Master and the Japanese version is called Spartan X.
Yeah, Wes. So
you think like the North American association with Spartans, like, oh, Spartans, like, that's cool.
Also, Yeah, no, that's true. But I think it was maybe just falling in love with the 80s martial arts rush of... Everyone in America loved martial arts.
100%.
Everyone was like crazy about it.
And this game as well was kind of based on the Jackie Chan movie Wheels on Meals. I don't know if have you heard of that movie?
I've not
I had never heard of that one
Wheels.
either. And then a few different Bruce Lee games. Enter the Dragon would be one because it's kind of this international tournament.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I heard this. Wheels on Meals?
Yes. Wheels on Meals.
Not Meals on Wheels.
Not Meals on Wheels. But that's actually what it was called. I had to type that and retype it 4 or 5 times before I made sure that I was getting this one right.
Wheels on Meals.
Have you seen Enter the Dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, same kind of concept.
Love it.
Mortal Kombat style,
Absolutely.
international, and Street Fighter, especially Street Fighter 2, the World Warrior. It's all kind of based on like the Olympics of fighting. Like you're traveling the world to see who's got the best fighter.
And also, even more than that, the camera angle that they use on Enter the Dragon is the camera angle you now know for fighting games. It was a camera set up with 2 people on either side of the camera.
True.
And it would stay very still a lot of the time and let them come at each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's a good point because we're talking about this era between like 84 and 87, really, which is setting the groundwork for what would become normal controls.
Oh yeah,
normal camera angles in different genres in the industry, and
they're creating the template.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
like they're setting up what all games will look like.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what this game does. So not only Enter the Dragon, but also Game of Death, which was a Bruce Lee movie.
Yep.
The reason for it having its ties to Game of Death is because you would kind of go through like an area. And then you would have to fight the big guy at the end of the area, which they ended up using as bosses.
Yeah.
Now, Kung Fu Master was kind of thought of as like the first left to right beat 'em up game.
Cool.
So it was kind of given that credit. So Piston Takashi, like already kind of at the forefront. He was a designer on that game. He left Irem, I think before Kung Fu Master even finished, but he had already kind of like left his mark on it. And he left them for Irem.
Sorry, I'm just saying Irem. It's a very, very millennial company. But yeah,
why?
Well, millennials love eating ass.
What is Irem?
Irem.
Oh, Irem.
Did everyone get that faster home, or am I just sorry about that? Maybe I was skipping 2 steps ahead.
Maybe I
gotta show my work like a math equation.
I'm seeing it IREM because it's yeah. So I'm missing.
Oh, that's less fun then.
But you know that old science fiction novel Rimworld, that has a whole different connotation now. Yeah.
Yeah, or the band Rim. Oh no, it's REM.
Oh,
okay.
It's
Damn it. Yeah. What's up with Michael Stipe?
Miyamoto was actually the Shigeru.
Yeah, the famous one. Yeah.
Was actually the guy who ported Kung Fu Master to the NES. So kind of got his start with this game as well. So a game that like I really didn't know much about.
Wow.
But kind of has this sort of butterfly effect on the industry at the time. So Piston Takashi leaves Irem at the time. He goes to work for Capcom, develops with them a game which is a spiritual successor called Trojan. Trojan kind of focuses more on parceling out sort of what Kung Fu Master started with. Also sort of interesting because it was his design in Irem, but Capcom had no claim to Kung Fu Master. So this being a spiritual successor was almost like a little bit of a coup.
Oh.
And you always wonder, like, if he had stayed with Irem and he developed Trojan with Irem, and then that led to, which I'll get to in a little bit, Street Fighter, would Irem have been the Capcom of the internet? Who knows? Who knows these sorts of things?
Wow.
The butterfly effect sort of things. But there was an interesting thing about Trojan, which is that the NES port allowed for a one-on-one version. So again, it was a side-by-scrolling beat 'em up, but you could also do a one-on-one similar to Rival Turf where we played, where there was this kind of like fighting mode that you can do. But this was much more preliminary. And Takashi saw the merit in just the boss fight portions of this, and decided, like, what if we made a game that incorporated the one-on-one elements as well as the boss fights? And we just made the whole game kind of about that. And you know what that kind of reminds me of? Did you ever play Warcraft?
Oh, yeah.
Like the later Warcrafts, especially when you have the heroes. And it was mods to Warcraft where you would just have the heroes, and you would have like 4 people on a team controlling each of the heroes against 4 people on another team controlling each of the heroes. The heroes being like non-typical troops where they have sort of like their power-ups that you can use in the midst of a battle. You remove all the foot soldiers and you just have the heroes. And that's essentially what made the industry of MOBAs, like League of Legends. And obviously that's like one of the biggest, realms of gaming that we have right now, especially professional gaming. So you took one concept of an already proven success, built a game around it, and it created a whole new genre. And that's kind of what we have here.
Right.
So Takashi took the ideas that he got in Kung Fu Master, put them into Trojan, took the ideas he had in Trojan, and eventually made Street Fighter in 1987.
Cool.
It's interesting, though, once Street Fighter released, he then leaves Capcom to join SNK. And with SNK, he develops games like Fatal Fury, King of Fighters. He was involved in the creation of Metal Slug as well, which is another game that we did here. But you can see here how Michel Ancel was kind of like, he does Rayman, and he's stuck with Rayman. He does Rayman 1, he does Rayman 2. He was a director, kind of loosely involved in Rayman 3, comes back for 4, does Beyond Good and Evil, does Peter Jackson's King Kong, but then eventually comes back with Rayman Origins and Legends, and he's kind of like tied down by this one franchise. It feels like Piston Takashi is kind of the opposite. He's like, that's the success, you guys take it, I'm going to go do something else. Right. And he always did. I don't know that he ever reached the height that he would have been at the release of Street Fighter 1. He wasn't there to experience the extreme heights of Street Fighter 2, but he was the guy who kind of did the groundwork. And I think he also did some work on Street Fighter 4 at its release as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. But it's so interesting because I want to see the changes from 1 to 2. You know, you're saying like this dramatic that I'm like, okay.
It's wildly different.
Wow. Okay.
You almost won't recognize a lot of what you see in this game.
Oh, cool. That's great. I can't wait to see it.
It's going to be a slower pace, though. Like we did very early on in this podcast, we did Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the SNES, and it was good. But you and I are not fighting game people.
No,
and we
we're
should
not.
say that at the top.
No, we're
this
not.
This is going to come from the perspective of two people who even, okay, as kids, I appreciated it. Because I always had this enjoyment of just button mashing, and it was almost like roulette at that point. You would just button mash. We didn't know what we were doing, and I know some kids did, but I didn't when I was playing Mortal Kombat, and I was just kind of like hoping for the best results on screen. Nowadays, I get frustrated because I want to learn the inputs and I want to be able to do certain things, and I have trouble enacting them, which is a me problem, not a game
for
problem.
Sure.
So this one's a little bit different. And people are often surprised at how limited Street Fighter 2 was compared to Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Like if you look back at the original release, it's like the number of characters and the limited things that you could do. The limitations of Street Fighter 1 compared to Street Fighter 2, the base edition, are even less. So you play as Ryu. That's it. You're Ryu. Okay. There's no character selection screen. The only exception is a player 2, if they come on board, they can challenge you in the middle of a fight. That's traditional Street Fighter, and that was kind of the first time that this had happened in a game. They come on as Ken. Yeah. If they beat you as Ken, they continue the single player mode with Ken instead of Ryu. So you can technically beat the single player as Ken, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Different sprites, same move set. So your player character is always going to have the same moves. The original cabinet that came out in arcade, this is actually fascinating. The hardware was very different from what you would normally see. So you know how what we've come to know, like describe a Street Fighter cabinet to me, like a fighting game cabinet.
It's all the characters, it's kind of bright colors.
Just controllers.
Oh, controllers. There's like, so this is a joystick, and then there's 6 buttons. Yep. Because highs and lows and things like that. Yeah.
So in Street Fighter 1, the original one, they tried something different. I mean, not different necessarily because it hadn't really been established that you want the 6 buttons. What they did instead is they had 2 buttons, a kick button and a punch button. Okay. Now that doesn't mean there's only 2 inputs, one for kick, one for punch. The harder you press each button,
oh my God,
that's hard, medium, soft punch.
Oh no.
Now it was almost like punching the machine as you were doing it. They were like big chunky buttons. Big chunky buttons.
Big chunky buttons.
And you would hit them with a variety of fervor, I guess, to change what you would do. Fascinating idea. In practice, it didn't work as well.
Machines kept breaking?
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
Like, if I'm just
especially because people were roundhouse kicking them. Just missing completely. I would love to see one of these things in practice, but eventually they changed that cabinet to the standard 3 and 3 buttons, so 6 total buttons, and that's kind of what has standardized in fighting games across the universe. Yeah, we believe.
Every time that you see one that's not like that, it always freaks me out. Or you see the big ones, like remember the ones you used to be able to get from home, like if you were a professional, we're not fight boys, but if you're a fight boy and you wanted to be a professional fight boy, you get these ones that are the size of like a computer monitor.
Oh yeah,
and they had so many buttons. buttons, and I'm like, oh, that makes me it makes me uncomfortable.
100%.
Too much choice.
And if people are big fans of fighting games, they usually they get the fighting sticks. Like they get like a gamepad to play them. Some of them are like Street Fighter branded and all that. I've never had an interest in that.
No.
In fact, when I was a kid, I was always confused at the arcades because I played fighting games way more on consoles than I did in the arcade. So when you put those 6 buttons there, I was like, I didn't know what to do with them.
So speaking of controls and stuff like that, and controllers that we were doing over Patreon, if you had to get professional fighting stick and board or whatever it's called, race car wheel thing, and maybe some pedals, or a plain joystick. I don't know what those are called. You know what I mean? Throttle.
Yeah.
Which one is the one that you want to try?
You know what? I think probably at this point in my life, I would say the flying joystick if there were a good enough game with it. Although the problem I have with wheels is that it never feels one-to-one for me. You're looking at a screen like I drive a car, and it just doesn't feel like in real life. How cool is that?
You drive a car in real life?
I drive a car in real life.
That's really cool. That's cool.
I think so.
Yeah, no, it is. No, there is something very funny though that you're like, fuck this commute. God, I'm so tired. I can't wait to play video games.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
I saw someone who built themselves a whole rig. It was like there's how they have these simulator games, and it's 18-wheel driver simulator, and he had like 6 monitors, a full cab, all that, and the comment, like he posted a video of him playing the truck simulator game, and the guy's like, just get a job doing that. Like at this point, what are you doing, buddy?
Get paid to do it.
Get paid to do it instead of paying to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine he gets home from his 18-wheel job, and that's what he does.
Well, it's, like Simpsons makes jokes about everything, but it's the kids want to buy like weed pulling simulator, even though they just earlier didn't want to do chores, and you're like,
exactly,
so true.
Well, they have games like Lawnmower Simulator, and Garden. Like it is kind of weird when you gamify something how much more enjoyable it is.
Oh, for sure. We're talking about The Sims.
Yes, exactly.
Like I don't want to go and talk to people.
I want to go pay taxes.
Yeah, exactly. I got to get back to my job.
Yeah, I want to go slap Mrs. Goth. What?
The Goths are real freaks.
The Goths
we talked about that in the episode. They're down.
That was a fun episode.
They're having a key party, and you need to attend.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's key that you show up there too. Yeah. And by key you mean a kilo of cocaine.
Real freaks.
So this was one of the first fighting games as well to introduce special moves, and they didn't come in the manual in the original Street Fighter. It was just like you would just have to kind of experiment with button presses, and then that's how you would do the way they called them in this game. You had Psycho Fire, which was the Shoryuken, or Psycho Fire, which was the Hadouken. Yep. You had the Dragon Punch, which was Shoryuken. Okay. And then you had the Hurricane Kick, which was Tatsumaki Senpu Kyaku. I don't know how close to pronouncing that right I was.
I think you've done really well with the pronunciations in general, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
I just want to say, I think the confidence helps a lot, but those are better names. I understand what all those 100%. Are. I'm like, Hadouken is like a universally known thing.
Yes.
But the other ones, I was like, oh yeah, man, we really kept close to Hadouken, didn't we?
We really did. Hadouken.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go.
I think actually in Street Fighter 1, there was an English dub where they would say like Psycho Fire, like, and it's just like that's not
what an insane thing to say out loud. What an insane thing to say out loud.
Psycho Fire!
Yeah.
Can you yell?
Watch out for my special move. Here it comes. Very secret. Psycho Fire. Like, isn't the
you
point
have to say it 10 seconds leading up to it as well?
Isn't the point supposed to be like that you're supposed to surprise them with the move a little bit if you call it out before it happens?
Or is it one of those battle cry things of you want to intimidate them before you get there?
Oh yeah. That's true.
I know a lot of people who are out there listening right now are and I know this from our listeners because this is kind of the demographic that we get because you're on this podcast, but they are staunch supporters of the First Amendment.
The First Amendment?
The First Amendment. Free speech.
Yeah.
Free speech.
Okay.
And here's the argument that they always use is can you yell Psycho Fire in a crowded theater? Can you do it? Is it safe? I think if you yell psycho in a crowded theater, you're going to get people running more than if you say fire.
I think if you yell in a theater now, I think that's it you need. If somebody screamed in a theater, people are going for every exit.
Hey, can actors yell fire in a theater?
Can they say Macbeth? What do you think they'd rather say on stage?
Oh, fire for sure. Have you ever? My favorite thing in the world, because I still have friends who act.
Yeah.
And is not acknowledging. Yeah, who act a fool. Is not acknowledging them when they say the Scottish play, and they look at you like, and you're like, okay. Yeah. I saw a great rendition of, the Bard's play, and you just not giving into that. They're like.
Say something.
Acknowledge me.
Say the play so that I have to scold you.
Exactly.
And then go outside 3 times and spit. Or whatever the fuck you have to do. It's just like, you're like, oh, it's just like, yeah.
I love, if you ever look up like why people can't say it, it's like, well, someone in the 1800s died doing Macbeth. It's like, what other plays were you doing back then? It was the only play you could do.
It was also like, because a bunch of people died. And you're like, your lights were candles. Your lights were candles in a big wood building full of cloth. It's nothing to do with Shakespeare, and it's fucking nothing to do with Macbeth. That why it was a fucking tinderbox that you all loaded hundreds of people into.
Your prop dagger was a dagger.
The skull you're holding up is an actual skull.
From the last person who played Macbeth. Why are you calling him Yorick? What's happening right now? Or that's Hamlet, I guess.
Yeah. Who fuck cares?
Have you seen, this is totally out of left field, but there's an advertisement for a version of Hamlet.
Yeah, at the Stratford Festival, which is a local festival of plays. And the skull, is that what you're going to say?
Is Crystal Skull vodka. And there's a guy in the billboard holding it. And I'm like, hate that so much.
I am going to go see that play.
Apparently, it's actually fucking amazing.
I've seen the trailer. It looks really good. But it's funny also. It's so funny we have not talked about that, yet we are running into the same thing. The Crystal Skull vodka made me laugh so hard. And also the fact that you could tell that they found the 3 actors that are going to be in the play, cast them early enough that they could take photos, because everyone else in the photo has their back turned. So it makes me laugh. They're going like, here's your 3 actors and some other people.
And just a party. Just people at a party. Sir Yorick, would you like another Crystal Skull vodka?
He's holding it up like, dear Yorick, you loved this vodka.
This is the mold of your skull. Holy shit, Dan Aykroyd.
What a guy.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Who would have thought he's a little unhinged?
No, who would have thought he has like the most iconic vodka in the market right now?
Wow, the bottle really sells itself.
That's
I think.
Right?
I don't even know if it's any good.
It's not.
And good, there you go. And it's only because he loves aliens.
Yes,
It's crazy. And you're like, who would have thought he's weird? It's like, well, he did write a scene where a ghost gave him a blowjob in one of his most famous movies. So maybe we should have seen this coming. I don't know.
Everyone's allowed to be a little weird if they give us Ghostbusters.
Go cross-eyed.
So the story of this game, you fight 2 fighters from 5 different nations. You start with Japan, US, China, England, no Canada, unfortunately. And if you make it through all of those, you end up in Thailand. Does include the bonus episodes. The players you fight, were you about to ask a question?
I was just going to ask a question. So you can only play as the one character, but the opponents you're playing does change based on the country.
That's true.
Okay, just want to check.
There are 10 different opponents that you fight.
Wow.
You actually don't fight Ken unless it's player 2.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting as well. In Japan, you fight Retsu and Geki. In the US, you fight Joe and Mike, who's a boxer. So that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
I wonder, actually, I haven't gotten there, but I wonder if Mike is
what was his name?
It depends on, it was Balrog.
Balrog.
In the US version. There's the interesting story about the dictator, the boxer, and the, what do they call him? Shit, the bullfighter.
Bullfighter.
Because you have Vega, you have M. Bison, and you have Balrog in... God, I hope I get this right, because it is a very cool story, and I know it, but I'm probably going to mix up the names. M. Bison was originally supposed to be the boxer because of Mike Tyson, but it was too close, so they had to change it. So they made, and Balrog was originally the dictator, who they ended up making, Balrog was... maybe the bullfighter, and Vega. This is where I'm messing it up. But those guys. So internationally, when they're announcing these, the names have changed. When they're announcing like professional fights, they do. They call them the dictator, the bullfighter, and the boxer.
And the boxer.
Yeah.
See, I love that.
Walked
idea.
into a bar.
I also love the idea that it was like a BlizzCon type thing in 1985, and he's like announcing them, and he completely gets it wrong, and he's like. And they're like, oh, just guess.
I guess we got to
like, and Bison's now the dictator, whatever. I guess you did it. And like,
you know who announced it actually?
Who?
Charlie Chaplin.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
The little scamp himself.
The little scamp himself.
Wow, okay.
It's like, have you guys seen my movie? He was in black and white.
Yeah.
When he was announcing this. It was
he's
so weird.
He's always in black and white.
Yeah, people don't realize that. Those movies weren't actually always filmed in black and white. Some of the actors were just really pale. Really pale. So in US, you got Joe and Mike. In China, you have Lee and Gen. In England, you have Birdie and Eagle. Bird and Eagle. That sounds like a US grouping.
It does.
And then in Thailand, you have Adon and Sagat.
Oh,
wait. Is Sagat the other one? Fuck. I'm going to get so much hate mail for getting this wrong for the 3 people, but I always forget.
At Retrograde Mikey.
I don't want that.
Yeah, do it. Tell him you're unfollow him and then chase him around for a bit.
Yeah, that's... I need the exercise too. So Sagat is the only character, seemingly, apart from Ryu and Ken, to make the jump from Street Fighter 1 to Street Fighter 2.
Wow,
and I
that's
think
cool.
even at that, Sagat may be only in Street Fighter 2 Turbo as a playable character. I could be wrong about that, though. So the legacy of this game, Final Fight was, there's a huge legacy apart from Street Fighter itself.
Okay.
Final Fight was originally, I think we talked about this in the Final Fight episode, was originally supposed to be called Street Fighter 89. It was going to be like a sequel. Ken and Ryu were supposed to be the protagonists instead of Haggard and Cody or Guy.
Yep.
Depending on how you're playing. Reception, the deluxe cabinet, the one with the punchies and kickies.
Punchies and kickies.
Sold only around 1,000 units.
Oh,
so I bet you that is a massive collector's item out there.
Imagine.
The 6-button version sold between 10 and 50,000 units. So pretty good as well. It reached the #1 highest grossing cabinet in Japan in January of 1988.
Wow.
So a legacy in and of itself. Kind of changed the game, changed the way we played video games, but it wasn't really until Street Fighter 2 that the massive appeal of these games sort of took off. Before we go and actually play the game, I want to take us through one quick thought experiment here.
Oh, please.
And this is kind of tough because Capcom splits out the sales of their games between versions. So Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Street Fighter 2 Alpha Centauri, Street Fighter 2, whatever the fuck.
Black Opal.
Black Opal,
Bronze of the Wizard, yeah.
There are 1,000 different releases for every game, so it's hard to say exactly what their best-selling games are. It's probably Street Fighter 2 and one of the variations of it. But the top 10 best-selling Capcom games. You want to go through the top 10? Of all time.
Oh my God. Okay, yes.
So #1, I'm not going to make you guess because this list is not what you think it's going to be.
Okay.
#1, Monster Hunter World with 18.3 million units. And
Okay.
I think largely that's because it is its own game. It released on a variety of consoles and it didn't have like Monster Hunter World, Oblivion, Monster Hunter World, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like they didn't split it up that much. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, similar story, 11 million units. Monster Hunter Rise, 10.3 million units. Resident Evil 2, 9.8 million units. Monster Hunter World Iceborne, 9.5 million units. Resident Evil 5, 8.3. Resident Evil 6, 8.3. Street Fighter 5, 6.6 million. Resident Evil Village, 6.4. And
Village? Oh, wow.
There's one notable omission so far.
Street Fighter 2?
Street Fighter 2, which comes in 10th place at 6.3 million units.
Oh my God.
But that, I think, would just be the base unit of Street Fighter 2. If you factor in Turbo and you factor in all the different versions and releases, it's probably there. Also, very notable omission is one of their most popular games of all time, maybe their best game of all time, in my opinion, Resident Evil 4, which, if you factor in all the re-releases, probably would be on this list somewhere as well.
Also, Monster Hunter. Do we need to do Monster Hunter on this thing?
I tried so many times to get into Monster Hunter, and I just can't do it. Monster Hunter World is the one that I tried most recently, and I just, for the life of me, couldn't get into it. Kudos to you if you can.
Yeah.
All the resource, the grinding of it is just so annoying to me, and I just couldn't enjoy it that much. That list came from Game Informer, by the way.
Okay. Informer.
And that's about it. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this one going into it?
Well, now you've scared me off a little bit because I was kind of like, oh, I'm excited. This is going to be great. Because we're not Fighting Boys, so when we get to play an hour worth of fighting games, it's really exciting because it's also a game where you don't have to do this fucking intro and this is, my father needs to be avenged. You're like, oh, fuck, okay, great. Can't wait to hear about this guy for 30 minutes. You could just start playing. And I always look forward to that. And to be perfectly honest, even to pull back the curtain that was probably on fire in the 1800s, is when you and I have a minute to have like a drink and like sit down and talk and stuff like that, we will boot up fighting games.
Usually Injustice or something like that.
Yeah, like one of these games where we're like, I don't even know if I like this, but it's just fun 100%. To like, whatever.
And that goes back to what I said about being a kid. Like neither of us know the controls. We just button mash.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to go back and play this game because we will have a winner. It's going to be fun to go back and forth and shit talk and stuff.
Usually Andrew wins at the fighting games. I don't know. I think in my head, I'm always trying to figure out combinations rather than button mashing. And as a result, I always lose because I don't know the combinations.
This is blind, stupid luck, and it is mine. And I have it.
You know what it reminds me of? Is what was the WWF thing where they actually did the boxing? The Brawl for It All?
Oh, Brawl for It All.
And the guy who won Brawl for it was they got wrestlers to actually go in boxing matches and fight each other. And someone who
Bart Gunn, I think.
Yeah, Bart Gunn, who was not supposed to win. They thought the best wrestler would win the boxing match,
100%.
but it turns out he was the best because he would just go out there, wildly swing and knock people out. And his reward is that he, quote unquote, got to box Butterbean.
Yes.
And to prepare for it, he tried to teach himself how to box. and he got his ass kicked. And Butterbean said if he just went out there and swung the way he was swinging before, he could have gotten lucky with one. And he didn't. He tried to get too technical. That's me. I'm trying to get too technical when I'm not a pro. I should just be swinging my arms, and I'm not doing it.
You should. You should honestly close your eyes.
Yes.
And you might do just as well.
100%.
Well, with that, we're going to go play Street Fighter 1. Visit it, patreon.com/Retrograde podcast to see the gameplay portion. And until then, we'll see you in a couple minutes.
We'll see you in 2 shakes of Ryu's tail.
Oh, right, his tail. I forgot about it. That must have been a Street Fighter 1 element. They took there with the tail in number 2.
He got it cut off by Ken.
Oh, yeah.
And now he doesn't have it anymore. Just a reminder that you can now find our gameplay segments where we play through a portion of today's game and provide video commentary while doing it over on our Patreon, patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast. Join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month for access to all the gameplay, plus 2 to 4 bonus episodes per month where we do things like character drafts, top 10 lists, and even take some suggestions from our community. So show some support to the podcast by joining the Mushroom Club at patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast for access to bonus content and all of our gameplay segments. We'll see you guys on the other side.
Oh! Hey!
Oh!
Oh! And welcome back to the Retrograde.
Hello. Wow, what an intro. The power, the energy, the gusto.
There was a lot of pent up frustration from the gameplay.
I'm drained.
I am so defeated in every aspect of the way.
I don't know if I ever want to play video games again.
Welcome to the last episode of the Retrograde Podcast. Actually, on the last episode, we should do Street Fighter again, just to remind us, going like, oh, right, this is why we don't do this.
Then if that's the case, can this be the last episode? Because I can't do that again. No, that was legitimately one of the more frustrating experiences I've had on this podcast before.
Yes.
More frustrating than Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball.
Which Mikey nearly threw a controller.
Also, yeah, go back and listen to that episode. That was a pretty good episode.
That was fun.
I think it was better audio setup, but it was still decent. This one, decent audio setup. Not a decent game. I'm bummed out by that game. I can see this feels like a beta for Street Fighter 2.
Yes.
It feels like a proof of concept for what would eventually come. And legitimately that is kind of what we were dealing with. Let's talk.
How you feeling?
Bell, let's talk.
Yes.
If you're Canadian. Graphics and design, pretty good. It's very similar to what would come to be known as like Capcom's aesthetic.
Absolutely. You look at it and you go, this is a Street Fighter game, right?
Yes. That's
not.
Though it's different, like even though you don't have many of the recognizable characters except for Ken and Ryu, it looks like an early Street Fighter game. No punches pulled, pun intended.
Yep.
Music is there. It's not that noticeable. It isn't as iconic as the music from Street Fighter 2, but it's pretty good. Like
it's
good.
fun.
The level design, like what's going on in the backgrounds was pretty decent.
They really went with the greatest hits though.
Fighting in front of Mount Rushmore.
Hey, if we're in China, guess where we're fighting? On the Great Wall.
Yes.
If we're in the States, we're fighting in front of Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
Well, the other ones, I guess one was a temple.
It was a temple.
Yeah.
We had Birdie's. In Birdie's, we were fighting in front of a pub.
Yeah. We're fighting just in an English street.
He put down his cider to come kick our ass. Yes. Birdie, so if you start in England, this giant Joey Ramone on Bane's Venom comes out. Like
he's twice as big
massive.
as you.
He's literally, his Sprite is twice as big as you. But he doesn't drink Sprite. He's
a 7-Up.
He's a 7-Up guy. Yeah, exactly. More of a LeBron James.
I'm surprised Cool Spot didn't show up to kick the shit out of us.
Honestly, could have.
Yeah, he could have.
And here's what you learn very quickly in this game. If you get hit by the enemy, they do massive damage every time. It's like you get 3 or 4 hits. If they hit you 3 or 4 times, you're dead. You need to hit them about 10 times.
Yeah, at least.
Oh,
yeah. No, you really need to pepper them.
The balancing of this game is crazy. They win just about all the air battles. I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure how they kept kicking me. Is it planned where like if you jump, you have to hit before you kick before you jump, and that does a jump kick? It's like a rock, paper, scissors thing. You know, you have the high, medium, low attacks, the heavy, medium, light attacks. But Jesus Christ, for the life of me, I could not, apart from cheesing, which maybe that's just an element of it, I couldn't figure out a way to get consistently good at this game against the computer.
No, one of the few rounds I won against the computer was because I got a lead and then ran away from them until the time ran out.
Yeah, and it worked.
I'm proud of myself. I don't care what anyone
I was proud of you too.
Thank you.
We lost our first, didn't win a round.
Not a round.
For 10 rounds.
At least
that. At least that. Going back and forward between the two of us. And then finally I went on a 3-game win streak. And it just so happened that was in America, which felt personal.
You really kicked the shit out of those American fighters. All the other fighters, you could barely touch them.
And
then these ones, you're holding them up and just pummeling them to death.
Their faces looked rough by the end of it. And that pisses me off. Like, what? Here's my thing.
What's your thing?
What has America ever done to the world to deserve that treatment in this video game?
Okay.
What has America ever done wrong?
To not alienate a huge fan base. Nothing. And also USA. And I'm proud to be an American. Yeah.
The second fighter, because you start off, as we said earlier, with you pick a nation between England, America, Japan, China, and you fight the first fighter in there. It's either Birdie, I think Lee, Renki or something.
I can't help you.
And some Kyle or something like that. He looks like a Kyle.
Joe,
right, because Joe and Mike. We beat Joe. Joe is the worst fighter of the street.
Joe sucks.
Birdie is the street fighter. Birdie's the UK guy. I can't imagine anyone beating that dude.
Now, like, I do appreciate, though, that they all, even though you can't control your character, like there is no choice in your character,
yes,
all of their characters are a little different. So Birdie's gigantic.
Yes.
And he attacks very, like, front-facing.
And he headbutts a lot.
He headbutts a lot, so he has his own unique movement. Whereas I believe the Chinese fighter, was in a crouched position and was blocking
very defensive the whole time.
And you're like, okay.
And then quick, swift movements.
Yes.
Balrog, I call him Balrog. Mike, who would have been Mike Tyson.
Yes.
Only punches because he's a boxer.
Yeah.
So his quote unquote low kick is an uppercut, which I've always liked that about him.
I do, and I like kind of like he's bouncing.
He's bouncing around.
You know.
His punches are very fast and very powerful. And then the other guys were a little bit more generic, like especially Joe. Like Joe was I think they wanted to be, like you mentioned as we were going into play him, kind of like Guile a little bit. He's got the blonde hair up in the air, like very quote unquote American. But
high and tight.
But even still, I can imagine this getting very stale because if you're competing against someone like Munch of the variety,
yeah, delicious.
When you were playing Street Fighter 2 comes in the fact that you can have anyone against anyone, any of the playable characters against anyone. This is Ken versus Ryu, and they have the same moveset.
Yeah,
they're just one is in a red gi and one is in a white gi. That's typical of them. So I can imagine that this being a home console game, like if this were what we had on Super Nintendo instead of Street Fighter 2, like it has the same number of characters roughly. It has a pretty large variety to the arenas that you would fight in, probably similar to Street Fighter 2, but the execution is much worse than Street Fighter 2 was.
Oh god, yeah.
It's and I think a lot of that does come down to the lack of variety in who you can play as.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. Like I also wonder the difficulty. Like there's just no way around it. This is hard. Like
so fucking
it's not
hard,
even,
man.
It's like we're not good. Like we'll be the first ones to admit we're not good. But it is just giving you have to be nearly perfect to beat them. And Mikey, you were when you beat Joe, all the power to you. But he said, I wonder what the difference is from number 1 to number 2, and number 2 taking off and being, graphically better and all these different characters and all that kind of stuff. That's true. But it's mainly on consoles where most people have played it.
Right.
And I wonder if that difficulty just was brought down because it's like, well, we don't need to steal your money anymore. You already bought the game.
Well, I mean,
I know it was still very popular
it was
in the
very popular in the arcades.
Don't get me wrong.
I think the major difference was they definitely would have had a home market in mind for this. So they couldn't make it blisteringly difficult out of the gate. And because of that, the single player ramps up in difficulty, just like Mortal Kombat did as well, where it's like the first person you fight is going to be probably the easiest person you fight, regardless of who it is, right? The difficulty doesn't necessarily come in who you're fighting. It's more about how many fights you've already won. Granted, I think if I'm remembering correctly, Street Fighter 2 was like always Zangief was early, and he was always just a walk in the fucking park.
Yeah.
But that
which obviously when you look at him, you're like, you're like, I can take him. I can take him. That's guy.
Physically, he's a specimen.
Yeah.
But when it's like, okay, guys, it's time to fight, and he just swings around with his hands to his side in that tornado move.
Chin up.
Yeah, you just kind of duck a little bit, like you're getting out of a helicopter.
Yeah.
You just going to put...
Zangief, this is not a bodybuilding
It's
competition.
not a bodybuilding competition.
It's a real street fight.
Except I'm about to build my body count after I put him in the fucking ground.
Absolutely. Let me know your mother's address so I can send her home your ashes and then fuck her. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Ryu. Do you think Ryu rips off the sleeves of his gi? First of all, because it's awesome.
I think
it really is. And then second of all, because Karate Kid.
Oh, maybe.
Because didn't Johnny have his sleeves cut off?
Oh, maybe. But I think that was just the way his gi was made, no?
I thought gis, you have to have sleeves because like the gripping and stuff like that. I think it's just an aesthetic thing. And by the way, it works. It works so well.
If I had arms like anyone in Cobra Kai, including all the characters, like the TV show, all the nerds who just show up for one day to fight.
Yeah.
I'll take one of their arms over mine. Are you kidding?
I do love that in that Cobra Kai show where people are like, oh, I'm a nerd. I've never fought before and stuff. And they have a 12-pack.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
What the fuck is
What
going on?
this about?
What, are you just caging that animal the whole time, buddy?
That was like, I watched The Black Phone, the movie The Black Phone recently.
Yes.
And some of those child actors are bad. Get out of the industry. Don't know what you're doing there. One of them he's like a fighter.
Oh.
And he's a great fighter. You can see it in his form when he's fighting. He's like really good. But he is one of the worst actors I've ever seen in my life.
Can't have it all.
But I was watching him fight like, yeah, that 13-year-old could kick my ass.
Oh, yeah.
It's a weird feeling.
How young do you think, like a 13-year-old exquisite martial artist,
Yes.
right? So I think a 13-year-old could kick the shit out of me. How much younger, if they are the best at martial arts, do you think they could get before you're like, I have a chance on this?
Oh, man. See, 13 is kind of it, but I've seen some really big 13-year-olds.
I was going to say. No,
that's the thing, because
because
that's close to like grade 9. I've seen some that could kick the shit out of me.
They have more energy. They're more flexible.
I honestly think, though, from a sheer size perspective, have I ever seen an 11-year-old that could punch hard enough to really hurt me?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think I'm going to go to 8.
8?
I think I could kick the shit out of an 8-year-old.
No, I know I could kick the shit out of an 8-year-old. I've done it plenty of times.
Absolutely.
But can I kick the shit out of a martial arts master 11-year-old? I think so.
I don't know.
11 is young, man. I know you don't think so.
Fuck off. I don't know how you turn this into that. You at home. At Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, at Retrograde Pod. What's the age you feel like you could kick the shit out of a kid?
It's a great question.
I honestly, it really says a lot about you, and it says a lot about very talented 11-year-olds.
Very talented 11-year-olds.
I guess.
No, I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's an 11-year-old on the planet who could beat me up.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. If you have any at home, send
let's make this
send them towards Mikey in a running competition.
Meet me on the Great Wall of China.
Well, round 1 went to me. Mount Rushmore it is.
This one's for you, George Washington.
I'm proud to be American. You would have loved this song. He's also like, what's that flag? You're like, oh, I gotta tell you so much.
Oh my God. Okay, so we got fed up with Birdie. Birdie was the guy who I think is just the best.
Yeah, that really crushed any hope we had.
I was audibly, visibly, physically frustrated. I didn't want any more to do with this.
I'm going to release some screen caps of the gameplay portion of Mikey and myself. I got that in the first round. Snapped when I lost. Because I also came really close to winning.
Say, well, that took 30 seconds.
Yeah. Oh, God. And so we'll release some screen caps to show you how frustrated we were.
There is an element to that, though, because you came close to winning your first round. And then you started to overthink it.
Yep.
And the only thing I thought, because I realized every time I jump over an enemy, they hit me on the other side with a leg sweep. So that was my only strategy. Anytime someone jumped, I would automatically leg sweep the other way. And if they jumped over me, I'd get a hit on them. That's how I beat you.
Yep.
That's basically most of the hits I got you were low leg sweeps and the odd jump from across the stage to lower you.
Did I mention Mikey beat me every time as well? I didn't win at all.
It's twice.
Yeah, both times.
Didn't you won a round though?
I won one round by running away.
Yes. And then I gave it to you the next round.
Yeah.
I said, I will find you.
Pummeled you. Yeah. No running this time.
Well, so we did the iconic thing where I was fighting Birdie and you pressed start and it said a new challenger is arriving.
Yeah, fun.
And then I think it said good luck, which is weird as well.
Yeah, very strange.
But it is fun. It's funny.
It only said it to me, which was weird.
It looked at you and it gave you a little like elbow to the gut. It's like, good luck.
Good luck. And I'm like, oh, that feels weirdly personal and insulting. Yeah.
But it was funny though, because the game got better when it was you versus me. Not because it was a more manageable AI, like we were both bad at the game, but because when you get hit, it's not it's not the end of the fight.
No, right.
Like when you get a headbutt by Birdie.
Yeah.
And by the way, Headbutt by Birdie was my band name in high school. You lose half of your health.
Yes. And because he moves forward, you're like, oh, that's it for me. Nothing I can do here. I'm stuck.
Well, Andrew, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Because you were just standing stark still for about 8 minutes.
Okay.
Like a ventriloquist.
Right.
You would only know this if you're watching this over on our YouTube.
Oh, YouTube page. Come on.
But
come
you
on,
just
guys.
snapped back into it
back
right
now.
there.
I'm back,
okay,
baby.
good. So sorry for the technical difficulties over there, but Andrew refused to move.
I did.
No, but it's true. Birdie would corner you, and he was so big and intimidating that it just felt like you don't stand a chance against him. And it turns out you did.
You don't in the first place anyway.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden he's got you in the corner. You're like, well, good. Can't jump over him. Can't do anything.
Nobody puts Birdie in the corner.
No.
Birdie puts you in the corner.
Yeah. Birdie does whatever he wants. With
Whatever he wants. You know what? There were
it's Birdie and Bobby Kotick. Those are the two people that do whatever they want to you.
And then there's some big guy jacking off into a fern back there too. I don't know what he's doing. The one thing I did like about this game, not the one, one of the few things that I liked about this game is the inclusion of the things like the Shuriken.
Yeah, that was
or the
cool.
Hadouken.
Yep.
You know, occasionally we didn't figure out how to do it, but you can imagine playing this game in the arcade back in the day and it happening every so often. You're like, oh, everyone stop. Whoa! What the fuck? Yeah. Do you think people would like, let's each put a quarter in. You go to one side, I'll go to one side. We're going to do every button press we can do until we figure out how to do it.
Absolutely, that's the way it is. I know, and it is cool that is like the payoff to these kind of things and makes you want to come back because you're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah,
and I will say, even though it took 10 to 20 punches to knock out your opponent, a couple of the Hadoukens, man, a Hadouken took like a third of the health off, and you're like, oh god,
they do. I think the cool thing about the Hadouken, and people can tell us whether or not this is still the case in Street Fighter. Probably not, because it's a lot more. It's much more commonplace. Getting hit by it, like you said, takes off quite a bit of health.
Oh, yeah.
So if you do it close up, it's harder for the person to predict and block it. If you do it from across the stage, it still moves really slow, so it's easier for them to block it. But to do it close up is a risk-reward thing because the input takes longer. So you really have to kind of catch them, or maybe catch them all. It's like a Pokemon.
God, it's so funny though. You watch this you play this, and it's the beginning of fighting games. And there are so many of the like Marvel versus Capcom or Smash Bros or something like that where you're like, man, wouldn't that be nice right now? Something else.
100%. I can't play this game without realizing how much better every other game, every other fighting game that I currently play, even though I play them seldomly, is.
Oh, yeah.
Now, with that said, I think it's about time to get into our reviews, Andrew.
Mikey, nothing would make me happier.
Well, what about never playing this game again?
Oh, that's higher up there. That's also one. This is 2. Birdie, that's pretty low.
Birdie's pretty low.
Don't want to play Birdie.
He doesn't make me
again.
very happy.
No.
As we mentioned earlier, usually what we do is we play games that we played before that we had an affinity towards. Because neither you nor I had played this game back when it came out in '87, we're going to be giving it a rating out of 4 bits based on what we think we would have thought about it had we played it when we were little kids around this time in arcades all across the world. And then we're going to give it our modern ranking also out of 4 bits, which is how the game holds up in the modern day against like some modern games like Stray. Like NBA 2K.
Yeah.
Like all the other games we want to talk about, like Diablo Immortal.
And all the rest.
Andrew. So start us off your review out of 4 bits based on what you think you would have thought about this game had you played it back in the day.
Wouldn't that be great that if Stray just kind of demented us for the rest of our lives and we're like, not enough cat content in this game? It's like from here on out.
It's kind of true.
But it is true. There
it's
was
like,
no
can
cats.
you pet the dog? Like you should be able to pet dogs in every game now.
And it is honestly a requirement at this point.
People have patched it in after you weren't able to. They patched it in because they get exposed on Twitter.
Yeah.
They get doxxed.
They get doxed.
They get dogsed.
They got okay, so here's what I would have thought as a kid. I wouldn't have liked it. I don't. This is a very limited game, and since I wasn't a fighting person, and really,
you were a pretty limited kid.
But that's not like it's not a 1-to-1.
Okay,
it's not an Opal versus Bronze of the Wizard.
Right.
No, okay, you understand that. Is that this is like the hardest version of a fighting game.
Yes.
You have to do all the parts of the fighting game that I don't like about fighting games. You have to memorize shit.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh fuck, I got a Pikachu and I can throw it at you now all of a sudden, or whatever, knock you off the map. You have to memorize things. You have to be.
Is that a Smash Bros reference?
I think so. Yeah. Who cares? You have to be very patient. And that's the thing that I would have not liked as a kid.
Right.
I would have hated this game. I just straight up would have hated this game. Now, would have I liked the Street Fighter element of it, and maybe it was in a franchise I like, so I'm not going to give it like an absolutely putrid score, but I'm going to give it 1.5.
Yeah,
because I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think maybe not, because I can imagine walking through an arcade and seeing this game and playing it and being like, that was good, but I would never want this on my home console.
Would you put a second quarter in? Oh, you're really thinking about it.
Yeah, probably a second quarter.
You would?
No, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm still not going to give it as high as a 1.5. Because,
you're going under 1.5?
Okay, for context,
whoa.
When I'm walking around arcades, I'm born in 89, ladies.
Nice.
So I'm probably hitting up the arcades in 93, 94. Like I'm still pretty young. Like my first arcade experiences, by that time, I would have had other opportunities, other games to play. Now, that's not to say that only new games were good to me back then, but it is to say that there were a lot of better games at that time that I could have played, much more well-realized versions of Street Fighter in the form of, I don't know, Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
So can I give it a subjective review based on what this game would have meant to me in 1987? No, I can't.
No.
But these are subjective reviews, and I very seldom would have put a quarter in this compared to something like Street Fighter 2. It was just bigger, flashier, better, music's better, moves are better, character selection's better. This one's a 1 out of 4 for me.
Okay, wow.
And honestly, if I actually played it as a kid, it probably would have been a 0.5, but I'm holding a little bit there because if I had my kid play this game, I would have tried to impose on my kid how meaningful a game like this was. I think it deserves some consideration for that, but for the subjective score for back in the day, it's a 1 out of 4.
This is the problem with this, is that, so that's 2.5, by the way, for our retro scores.
Yikes.
So we get to our current score. I'll just kind of lean into that with this. The problem is, if you take the name Street Fighter off this game, what are we giving it?
Right.
And that's the problem, is that this game's just not good. It is completely functional, but it's scaled so difficult that it's beating all the fun out of the game. And that's ultimately why I play video games. I want to have fun. I want to be challenged, and not like this.
Right.
So in my current score, I'm going to give it a 1, but I should give it a 0.5, but I'm going to give it a 1 just because I could see the parts. And if I was that person that could really get into the things that would make this game good, sure, but it's just not for me. So 1 out of 4.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I'm struggling a little bit with my modern score. I mean, we have the potential to go for a 0. So there's still space if you give it a 0.5. But does it warrant that? I really agree. If you take the name Street Fighter off of this, what do we give it?
Yep.
And this is where we're going to get a lot of backlash, because fans of fighting games are probably good at this game.
Oh, yeah, they probably are.
And they probably think like, well, just get better, get good, that typical mentality, and you'll enjoy the game. Modern game design, which is what we're talking about, this game in the modern day against likes of modern games, has a way to tease you in, to pull you in. And even Street Fighter 2 realized this. It wasn't immediately unforgiving right off the bat. There was a way to play it for the first time and maybe win your first fight.
Yeah.
This is not that.
No.
And that means it's, in my opinion, poor modern game design.
Okay.
So I cannot accept when someone says, just get better and you'll enjoy this game more. For one of the very few times that we've ever done a game on this podcast, I found myself thinking, I legitimately don't want to pick this up again. Like 2 rounds in, I'm like, fuck this game. It's unfair. It feels unbeatable. Now, would there be satisfaction in going through and beating it just for the sake of saying that you did? Learning the moves, learning the timing? Sure. But there are plenty of games that you can say that about, and I wouldn't enjoy doing it for this game, apart from just checking something off my bucket list. I found very little redeeming qualities about this. Even the fact that when you lose, it's the same taunting message you get from the opponent, regardless of who the opponent is. I'm giving this one, fuck it, a 0.5 out of 4.
Well, there we go. Yeah. So a 0.5 gets us to a 4 combined score, 4 out of 16. Not how I thought we were going to do. If you had told me we were doing Street Fighter, I'm like, yeah, you're going to give 4 to 16. I'm like, no fucking way. What's wrong with the game?
Yeah.
Turns out, lots.
Let's go back and look at Street Fighter 2, episode 20 for the Retrograde podcast.
Don't go back and listen. We're telling you.
It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. If you do, let us know why you hate it. Actually, I don't think you can anymore because our feed only goes up to 200 and we're at episode 222 or something like that at this point.
You just missed it. Sorry, guys.
Just missed it. Oh, shit.
Oh, no.
But maybe we'll bring it back in a modern retelling like we did with Mortal Kombat.
I think we have to.
I think we have to.
Yeah.
Retro score, a 3.5 for you, a 4 for me. In the modern day, you gave it a 3, I gave it a 3. And I think that was pretty, you know what?
Generous?
Yes. Because knowing our affinity towards fighting games, I think we were a little green maybe a little bit worried. But I do think similar to Mortal Kombat, going back and playing that game now, we would have had a little bit more of an appreciation for it.
Okay.
We've gotten better at retro games.
Sure.
So
no, that's fair.
Do you want to make our way over to the awards?
Absolutely.
To the red carpet and see if this game wins any awards?
Todd, you ready to go?
Todd's ready to go. Okay, let's walk over to Todd. And, the red carpet that is colored the same as Ryu's headband. Let's go stand on it.
Or hair in this game. We talking about he's a redhead?
Redhead. He's a redhead in this game.
Yeah,
he's as red as Ken's gi.
You've been waiting for it all year. The most glamorous award ceremony of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grady's.
Well, here we are.
Wow.
The glitz and glamour. It's time for an award show.
Wow, you're hosting. You should do the intro and stuff like that. That's good.
Elliot won't let me. Producer Elliot has somehow garnered more power in Sad Styles Productions than we have.
Are you birdie-sized?
He's birdie-sized.
Yeah, he is.
May be the only guy who could beat Birdie. He is as jacked as Birdie.
Why didn't you protect us against Birdie?
Why didn't you do anything?
Fucking coward.
You are a coward. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm your boss.
Right. Hey, whoa, okay.
Did we write it? We own Sad Styles, right?
I think so. Last time I checked. I don't know.
He's rocking. He's cock of the walk. Pretending
he really
like
is. He's really Bobby Koticking over here.
He's really Bobby Koticking. That's walking his cock into a room. That's
Elliot. You have a wonderful gi on, which I liked.
Why don't you reach into one of those torn off sleeves of yours, grab the envelope, and let us know the awards this game won. The Worst Buy Hall of Fame.
And
What the fuck are you doing?
the Uva Bowl Memorial Dead Pixel Trophy.
Shut the fuck up.
Yikes.
a classic Mikey. Haichi Chaichi.
Aichi. That is the Worst Buy Hall of Fame. Beep. Beep.
Mikey, they just heard it.
Beep. Well, listen, I'm just reiterating to them.
Okay.
Maybe they actually, that's very ableist of you, Andrew.
How would they hear any of this then?
Well, oh wow. Everything is so binary. It's so black and white for you, Andrew.
Don't do this. Don't do this.
No, it's very ableist because some people, and they're just, I'm not a scientist.
No, that's good. That's good to establish, yeah.
And just like you established you're not a doctor earlier.
I'm not a doctor. I never have been.
Are you a TV producer?
I am, yeah. That's my production company.
Stop laughing because now we're talking.
I'm so sorry.
An ableist would laugh at something like these things. Some people cannot hear drops.
Really?
Yeah. They were, if you were dropped on your head as a kid, you can't hear drops.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
your brain can distinguish which ones are drops and which ones aren't.
Mine can.
Wow. But some people can't.
Some people can't.
Wow. That's
I'm
sad.
not a scientist, Andrew.
That's sad. The funniest part of these episodes are the drops.
Oof.
I know.
Probably true.
Yeah. So too bad they have to hear the other sludge that we're throwing out here.
So the Worst Buy Hall of Fame is a current score below a 2, and the Juve Bowl Memorial Dead Pixel Trophy, an overall score of 6 or less. That is almost the equivalent of the Chevy Silverado Like a Rock Dwayne Johnson & Johnson and Family Company Trophy Hall of Fame trophy.
Yeah.
But a little bit more room actually for the Juve Bowl.
Yeah, I thought we reduced it, but whatever. You know,
it's a 6 or less.
Because didn't we put a 2 or under on one of these awards?
Yeah, I think so, because the Chevy Silverado is a 14 or higher.
Yeah, so it should be 2 or less.
I think so.
Yeah. So you get the award this time, Street Fighter, but the next time,
but you watch yourself.
No dice.
I'm gonna make that change for everything moving forward. How
there
about
we go.
that?
Okay,
so there will be a cutoff canonically for those of you managing the wiki.
Yeah, for you guys managing Retro Wiki, it technically gets it, but in name only.
In name only. Yeah.
So there you go, Mikey. We just played Street Fighter.
We did play Street Fighter.
Which sounds like such an exciting expression to say out loud. Except it wasn't.
It was the wrong Street Fighter. But here's the thing. In all of the collections, all the re-releases of Street Fighter, every time you get back on the wagon with Street Fighter, or they have like an old selection of the games on a newer console, turns out Street Fighter 1 is usually ignored. So we're not alone in thinking that the formula just was not quite there by the time that this one came out. So what do you want from us?
What do you want from us?
I know what they want from us.
Blood?
Blood, and our closing segment of today's episode.
Closing segment.
Is, say it with me, Andrew.
Oh, no.
3 Cent 10 says to you might guess the game. Where we take a video game, a modern video game, or retro video game, and we try to describe it in 3 generic sentences and see whether or not we can come up with the game.
Okay.
This one was submitted to us on Twitter by Alan Trickman at @here_2_chortle. I'm going to give this to you. I did it myself already because I needed to know the answer as well.
Well, okay, here's the thing though. If you submit them in the future, keep the answer in white so that you have to highlight it so that Mikey and I can play together.
That's a good one. Yeah, send them to our email, the retrogradepodcast@gmail.com. That'll work as well. We're going to try to do one of these every episode.
Okay.
So I did this one, and I will say I got it.
Oh, fuck.
Okay?
Oh, crap.
So we're going to go sentence by sentence.
All right, here we go.
Sentence number 1.
He says number 1.
An orphan kills his adopted father, then starts collecting jewelry.
Starts collecting jewelry. Oh, that feels like a real clue there. Okay, I'm going to need clue number 2.
Okay.
Collecting jewelry.
Colonel Mustard. In the library. Well, you said you're going to need clue 2.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was
okay.
like, that feels very obvious.
So
It's
sentence
clue.
1, I'll read it again. Orphan kills adopted
Yes.
father, then starts collecting jewelry.
Okay.
Sentence 2.
Yeah.
Travels space and time through the power of song with his sidekick.
Oh, no. I do. Okay. Just space and time with a sidekick.
And now here's where it might get a little bit
no.
confusing. Sentence number 3. So I'll read them again.
Yeah.
Number 1, orphan kills his adopted father, then starts collecting jewelry.
Right.
Number 2, travels space and time through the power of song with his sidekick. Number 3, gets engaged to a fish.
You got this?
I did.
Which one did you get it on?
You know what? Because I saw them all at once.
Yeah.
I had all of them.
Oh, my
but
God.
I think I would have gotten it on the second sentence.
Second one?
Yeah. The third one actually kind of threw me off a little bit more than anything.
Oh my God, gets engaged to a fish. Like a mermaid, maybe? Or like, okay, traveling space and time through song. That should be obvious.
That is the one that gave it away to
That
me.
should be obvious. What is this? What is this
It-
game?
It is I'll give you a clue
Okay.
because it is a blind spot for you.
Oh, crap. Is it Zelda?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's Ocarina of Time. It's the
Ocarina of
Legend of
Time.
Zelda Ocarina
He
of
marries
Time.
a fish?
He marries a Zora. So basically there's an exchange of jewelry.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be an engagement ring. So technically they're engaged.
Where's the sidekick?
Epona.
Okay, the horse.
And Navi.
Okay.
Technically. Yeah, so probably more Navi.
Navi.
And then the adopted father is the Deku tree because you technically kill the Deku tree in the first level. So that one kind of stumped me a little bit as well.
Well, here to chortle, you got me.
Hey, we're here to congordle you.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm glad you did it. No, yeah, Mikey looks really... Yeah, your brain hurts, doesn't it? You didn't like that.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
No, you didn't like it. You said it,
didn't
though.
like it.
It's stuck
But I
now.
love the submission, and we
I
want
do.
more of those
Yes.
submissions because we want more of those. So hey, if you have a submission or a question you want us to reach, we're going to reserve this time at the end of each episode for a little bit of listener interaction.
Yeah.
We've got kind of a bank of those things. We didn't know where to fit them in. We're going to start episode by episode having one submission, either of the 3 sentences to you might guess the game,
Oh, Jesus.
or it's good.
Okay, that one doesn't hurt you?
No, that's good.
No, that one's good. That's like an elixir. It brings it back
3
to life.
sentences to you might guess the game.
Everyone gets it's 310 to Yuma, right?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
of course.
Oh,
No,
okay.
that's,
Okay.
that's part and parcel with
No,
they
and then
get
we
it.
also been weirdly getting questions for like life advice. And
Oh, yeah.
So we might start reading some of those as well. So if you've got some questions if you want us to answer or weigh in on your life, we're here.
It's gaming related
Yeah.
life advice. A couple people unrelated actually sent these to us, so we'll address those and it'll be kind of a talking point.
Yeah.
Any questions, anything you have, we're going to start building up more of a stockpile and getting through them episode by episode. So
Absolutely.
that's all I got to say, Andrew.
Well, that's all. Thank you so much, Alan, for your submission. And can't wait to read out more submissions that are coming up soon. But until then, we love every single one of you, and
Yes.
we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself.
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. Hadouken! Want more Retrograde in your life? You can visit our website for show notes at theretrogradepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, and the podcast at Retrograde Pod.
Or Instagram at the Retrograde Podcast.
For bonus episodes, check us out at patreon.com/theretrogradepodcast.
Send your questions and business inquiries to the retrogradepodcast@gmail.com.
See you next week, D-pads.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
No punches pulled, pun intended.
Yep.